Interloper. Written and narrated by Keepupmomo. Voice acting done by Kareem. Everyone was staring intently at the newcomer with great interest. Standing in front of everyone was a tall girl with curly brunette-colored hair. All of the students were looking her up and down. Mrs. Ruth, the English teacher, began to speak. "Everyone listen up. We have a new student, so give her your full attention," said Mrs. Ruth. Everyone was still staring at the girl, waiting for her to speak. She was kind of intimidated by it all. "I can introduce you if you're uncomfortable." No. I can do it," said the girl. "Hello, everyone. My name is Andrea, and I'm a transfer student coming all the way from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania." The students were enthralled. "You're a long way from home. What brought you to Richland? What's a girl from Pennsylvania doing in Washington, of all places?" The students were asking all sorts of questions. It was very hard for Andrea to keep up. "It's not all that special. I wouldn't want to bore you," Andrea said. The students pleaded together. Tell us. Andrea couldn't have said no. "A couple months back, my parents went to a business meeting here," Andrea explained. "They loved everything about Richland, so they decided to move here." "What a wonderful story," said Mrs. Ruth. The students had to agree. "I almost forgot. You'll be sitting next to Matthew. He's over there, quite friendly and very sarcastic. I'm sure you'll love it." Andrea looked over and saw Matthew talking to some of the other students, joking and laughing all the while. Suddenly, a nasty thought struck her. "What is he like? Him? Oh, hell no, I'm not going to do that again. Better keep an eye on him." She began to look at Matthew coldly, but quickly smiled so as to not attract any attention, and took her seat. After that, Mrs. Ruth began teaching. A few minutes passed and everyone had started writing notes. Matthew, of course, was doodling and wasn't really paying attention. However, Matthew couldn't help noticing Andrea staring at him in a hard manner. It was almost like she was disgusted by Matthew being there. Matthew didn't say anything until Mrs. Ruth started to get a phone call. "Oh, bother. Well, everyone take a 10-minute break. I'll be right back." Mrs. Ruth quickly left the classroom, her phone still ringing loudly. Once Mrs. Ruth had left, Andrea's stare intensified, and Matthew, out of confusion, spoke up. "You got a problem? You've been staring at me very intently." "It's none of your business. Learn to speak when spoken to, idiot." Everyone was taken aback. Shelby, knowing what could happen if Matthew got angry at someone, tried to warn Andrea. "I wouldn't insult him if I were you, Andrea. He can get pretty intense when he's angry," Shelby said nearby. "Oh, really? He doesn't look very intensely angry to me. It's not like he's going to do anything anyway." "I'm not going to do anything." "Did you just say that?" "Now you listen here, you worthless piece of garbage. You do not know half of what I can do to people like you. I've dealt with your sort. Trust me, it's not a lovely sight. You want to keep insulting me and see what happens?" "Oh, I'm the worthless piece of garbage, huh? Why, you insolent little—" "I don't recall stuttering," Matthew replied, fed up. "Maybe you should get your ears checked, you little Matthew! No need for swearing at the newcomer already." "What? I was going to call her an imbecile." Shelby was more than glad about that. Even more pleased when some of the troublemakers brought out their speakers and started blasting music for everyone to listen to. Matthew was happy that Shelby didn't hear him mutter some words under his breath. "Try me, I dare you, little prick." Later on, during lunchtime, Leonard and Matthew were sitting at one of the tables. Shelby, Caden, Lorenzo, and Alejandro had just grabbed their lunches and were walking up to them. Leonard noticed someone walking with them, and Matthew scowled when he saw who it was. It was Andrea. Andrea immediately felt uncomfortable as Matthew continued to glare at her angrily. Shelby noticed this and immediately started trying to introduce Andrea to Leonard, so that Andrea didn't have to face Matthew's glare head-on. "Hey, Leonard, this is Andrea. Andrea, this is Leonard."
"How do you do?"
"Quite well, you?"
"I'm alright."
By this point, Matthew had stopped glaring, but was now eavesdropping on the interaction, pretending to scroll through his phone. Uncharacteristically, staying quiet. "You all right there, Matthew?" Lorenzo asked. Matthew, without looking up from his phone, asked, "Is that supposed to be sarcasm?" I'm being so for real. You're like hella quiet for like no reason. You're right. He's probably in one of them little depressive episodes. "Oh, why does everyone hate me?" Caden mimicked nearby. Matthew quietly turned to Caden and said, "Caden, can you do me a favor?" "Yeah? What?" Shut up! That had done it, and Caden stayed quiet for the rest of lunch. During the passing period, Leonard ran beside Matthew. They were both heading to their history class. Leonard spoke to Matthew quietly.
"Hey Matthew, how have you been feeling since yesterday?"
Leonard asked. Matthew's face fell. Okay, about that. You see, when you ended the call that night, I started to sob, I guess. I don't know what it was about me. I started to sob, and I heard this weird, voice. It wasn't pretty.
"What did it say?"
"Oh, something about me being worthless and how I could never match anyone's, popularity, and I wasn't even worth a penny."
"That would have been your negative thoughts and self-talk,"
Leonard said.
"Matthew, I know it's hard to believe, but you're not alone, and I will always be here for you."
Matthew quietly replied, "Thanks, Leonard. Thanks a lot." When Leonard and Matthew found their seats, they waited for the rest of the class to fill up. When suddenly, Matthew recognized someone and instantly scowled. It was Andrea, talking to none other than Elliot. Matthew winced and groaned as he saw Elliot chatting up Andrea. Of course he was going to pull a fast one. It's almost like magnetism. They even have similar personalities. Huh, similar minds think alike, I guess, Matthew said with gritted teeth. Leonard gave Matthew a knowing look.
"I heard from one of the, troublemakers, as you call them, that Andrea is the one that started it. Apparently she stared at you with an angry look, and when you asked what was wrong, she threw insults at you. Is that correct?"
Yes, that's correct, Matthew replied in a tone of annoyance. Leonard was about to say something when suddenly Mr. Levi, the history teacher, called everyone to attention. "Everyone, we have a new student named Andrea. I hope you make her feel welcome. I'll let her introduce herself." "Thank you, Mr. Levi. Hello, everyone. I'm Andrea, and it's lovely to meet you all." The students began asking all sorts of questions, and Andrea answered each one patiently. After all the questions had been answered, Mr. Levi spoke to Andrea. "You'll be sitting next to Elliot at the table over there." He pointed in the direction of the table. Andrea looked over and went wide-eyed. What Mr. Levi had failed to mention was that Leonard and Matthew were also sitting there. She scowled as she locked eyes with Matthew, who in turn gave back a death stare. Both of them knew this class wouldn't be as welcoming as they first thought. Weeks passed, and it soon became apparent to everyone that Andrea and Matthew hated each other. They seemed to try to impede each other's progress. They would argue bitterly over everything. Elliot, whom Matthew thoroughly disliked, would always try and back up everything Andrea did, and Leonard would always be there to defend and calm Matthew down. Eventually, it finally came to blows one day. The two were at each other's throats, arguing pathetically. "You ugly, pathetic-looking twit!" "Oh, says the guy that everyone hates." "And jealous that Andrea doesn't want to be your friend," Elliot said, purposely emphasizing the word friend. If looks could kill, Matthew's death stare would have scared the devil out of everyone in that classroom. "Oh, Elliot, your little friend over here can go roll off a bridge for all I could give a damn." "Huh," Elliot scoffed. "Of course you'd be the person to annoy everyone you meet, wouldn't you?" Matthew lost patience. "Said the pot, calling the kettle black. You have the gall to call me rude when you do nothing but make fun of people who have done nothing wrong to you? I hope you rot with the little vixen over there, you worthless little—"
Matthew!
A voice behind Matthew rang out. As the arguing table looked back, Leonard was staring coldly at the group. He spoke in an angry tone.
"Matthew, I will not let this anger continue. Take a walk now."
Leonard said, glaring coldly at Matthew. Matthew's eyes bulged and glared back at Leonard. Elliot spoke next. "Finally, get him out of here. I need a break."
"Elliot, you out of all people shouldn't be talking, or do you want me to mention what happened in 3rd grade when you did something like this?"
"And next time you dare gang up on me with your little vixen partner over there, Leonard won't be here to help you. And trust me, you don't want to know what a repeat of 3rd grade would look like now," Matthew said coldly. Matthew proceeded to walk out the classroom. Mr. Levi finally got the table to calm down, and the rest of the class, who were thoroughly confused, went back to writing down notes. Andrea, however, started to get chills as Matthew's words echoed in her mind. What did he mean by that? What had happened in 3rd grade between Matthew and Elliot? Andrea was rightly confused. Leonard told her not to worry, and that he would talk to Matthew later. And that was the end of that. The class got back to normal, and everyone went on taking notes.
However, nobody noticed that Matthew hadn't returned, nor did they notice Andrea go wide-eyed in shock as a chilling thought struck her. Maybe I took this too far. While Andrea was stuck in her trance, Matthew was sitting at the same lunch table he always sat at. He was planning something sinister. He chuckled as he thought to himself, "I'm sure Elliot would hate if more of his secrets got out, wouldn't he? That would teach not only him, but Andrea, that I'm a force to be reckoned with. Enjoy the rest of your high school career, Elliot. Or whatever's left of it." Matthew smiled and started mapping out the right time to pay Elliot out. He would show everyone. Oh, he would.